This is a very, very important and special class because we were building up towards this moment. We gave a lot of introduction. We introduced last week what a Mishnah is, which is very, very important. And now we're finally going to understand the process of what really is happening in the Talmud, which is decrypting the Mishnah. How the sages studied, debated, and understood the Mishnah. All right, I got a complaint after last week that there weren't enough jokes. So, no, last week we were a little bit low on jokes. Sometimes you work. Somebody once asked me, do you build the class around the jokes or you put them in later? Okay, so the joke starts first. We got to start with the joke. So here's the story. Two kids are at a birthday party, Chaim and Yankel. All right, Chaim and Yankel. And there's 2 pieces of cake left. They're both eyeing it, like that awkward moment, like you don't want to take. Finally, Chaim goes and he grabs the bigger piece. So Yankel says, Chaim, come on, some manners over here. You got to go grab the big piece. So Chaim says, Yankel, what would you have done? He says, I would have taken the smaller piece. So he says, exactly. Here's your piece. Okay. Now, why is it an important joke? Why is it an important story? Because all built around assumptions. We in the Western world are not used to thinking through pre-accepted assumptions. And more or less, the way we see it the first time, that is what it is. The whole idea of thinking through an idea and understanding, or what are the assumptions that are coming here and challenging that. Okay, let's see how that goes. But we're going to be doing something very, very big tonight. Tonight, we are done giving introductions, meaning I'm still going to have to give you a lot of introductions. But all the pre-knowledge and all the good stuff from before, tonight we're going to actually be diving into the Talmud. I've actually looked up online to just see what some other Talmud crash courses exist out there. And there are quite a bunch, different rabbis. You could see their stuff on YouTube or whatever, podcast. There's one critical thing that they're missing, which is they speak a lot about the Talmud, but they never actually give you a real taste of real, authentic study of Talmud. Which means, what actually is it? It's like talking about ice cream, but I'm actually giving the ice cream. You gotta taste it, you gotta experience it. Let's get the experience happening today, but first, let's just talk a little bit about the Talmud. What actually is happening in the Talmud? So last week we spoke about something called a Mishnah. A Mishnah is an extremely tight and concise, the most original record of the oral tradition of Judaism. That's the Mishnah. I want to remind you, the sages from the time of the Mishnah are called Tanaim, or in the singular, a Tana. So whenever somebody says a Tana, or the Tana says, or the Tanoim say, that's Mishnah time. The Mishnah was finally redacted, completed in about the year 200, give or take a few years. I'm not sure the exact date, but end of 2nd century, maybe even beginning of 3rd century, but somewhere around there, 1800 years ago. Okay. The Mishnah is very brief and concise, and we spoke a lot about the style and the terse style of the Mishnah last week. Then we have the next part. Yeah, let me show this to you. This is fun. Okay, ready for this? Check this out.
Excuse me, would you like something to read, sir?
Well, I don't read a whole lot, huh? What do you got?
Modern electronics, time, Business Week, the Talmud, the 24-volume dissertation on Jewish law.
Let me try that Talmud.
All right. And you, sir?
Was it actually in the airplane show? No. It's a deleted scene?
It's either really well done addition to the movie, like almost AI type of thing.
Copying. I don't think so. This is a...
Or something joke that they cut out here.
Yeah. Maybe it's an outtake. It could be an outtake. We'll actually be talking about outtakes soon, later on today. But not a bad clip. Oh, that's cute. That's a cute clip.
Fabulous. The airplane is famous because the scene where she's passing up reading, there is a Jewish reference, which is that someone's asked for some light reading, and he said, how about this leaflet, famous Jewish sports legends?
All right, oh, there you go. So, all right, so the Talmud, hey, look at this, Alan. We got Alan over here, helping us out here in this cold little night. Take a seat, Alan, get yourself a coffee. Tonight's a coffee night. Oh, okay. All right. All right. The Talmud comes post Mishnah. The Talmud is really the collection of Mishnah together with its commentary, Gemara. Okay, Gemara is going to be the key word over here. Talmud is the word that really refers to both. But the Talmud contains two works. First, a Mishnah, and then what we generally call the Talmud, which is really the Gemara. Take a look in your books. I want to show this to you. In your books, a little bit in the back of the lesson, page 104. Take a look at page 104. This gives you a spread of the Talmud. And by the way, spoiler alert, we're going to be studying this exact spread of Talmud today. Okay, just take a look at page 104. This is the opening words of chapter 10 of the Tractate Pesachim, all about Passover. The first 4 lines, 4 and 1 word of lines, is the Mishnah. Those are the opening words. Then, you'll see in the Hebrew, there's a little bit of a bold and a bigger gimel and a mem. See that?
Yeah.
That stands for Gemara. There the Gemara begins. And the Gemara could go on for pages and pages and pages. So you have one little Mishnah, which comes from before the Gemara, gives you 4.5 lines of a law, but then the Gemara shoots on for a very, very long time. So the Gemara is what we're going to be talking about today. We spoke a lot about the Mishnah, now we're going to talk about the Gemara. The Gemara is a very, very thorough discussion and a real record.
References on 104.
104, but we're going to be going back to like page 77. It's built as a commentary, line by line, word by word commentary of the Mishnah. Okay, let's get some keywords over here before we really dig in over here. Page 77 in your books. Here's some keywords of the Talmud. Page 77. Let's get some definitions over here. There's going to be a lot of key terms we'll be talking about tonight. Number 1, the word Talmud literally means study. All right, pretty literal work. Pretty literal title for a work like that. Study, and it is the combination of Mishnah and Gemara. That's what Talmud is, as you see over here. Mishnah and Gemara together, that's a Talmud. All right, so what's a Mishnah? Mishnah literally means material to be reviewed, and that is the original code of the oral law, compiled by Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, we spoke a lot about last week, and his team, compiled in the late 2nd to early 3rd century. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Then you have the Gemara, which is really what the Talmud is, and that means material to be learned. And that is the text that records the interpretation and analysis of the Mishnah. Okay, here's an interesting note. Let's read the next paragraph. In common usage, it, meaning Gemara, also refers to the editor's voice within the Gemara text. Therefore, if a question or answer is presented anonymously, Talmudic students will describe it as the Gemara asks or the Gemara explains, etc. This is a very common thing. Most times the Gemara is going to say something. It's not going to say who said it. So you say, asks the Gemara. The Gemara asks a good question. The Gemara gives an answer. The Gemara itself is like the narrator over here. Okay, and here's a final one. This is a bonus one. Shas. Shas. Shas is not a word. It's an acronym for Shisha Sidarim, which means 6 orders. It's a common alternative title for the Talmud due to the Mishnah's division into 6 orders. So the rookies call it Talmud, but if you want to sound like a pro, you say Shas. I'm learning Shas. If somebody comes and says, I studied the whole Talmud, I promise you they didn't study any of it. It's going to say, I went through Shas. I studied Shas. Oh, now you know what you're talking about. Okay. Okay. Let us right now give a little bit of an overview what the Gemara is, and really the goal over here is to actually get a real taste of it. Here's some facts over here of the Gemara. Number 1, the sages of the Gemara are called Amoraim. Okay, just try to remember that. Mishnah sages are Tanaim. Talmudic sages called Amoraim. They're from a much later stage. They're from the 300 years following the Mishnah, and they are the sages of the Gemara. The Gemara is really a collection of discussion, debates, all that good stuff happening over 3 centuries of Jewish scholarship. More than 3 centuries. What is the Gemara? The Gemara is really a very comprehensive record of Jewish tradition, but it is formulated as an interpretation of the Mishnah, which means that's the style of the Gemara. It's going to take one line of the Mishnah, one line at a time, and crack it open. How does the Gemara interpret the Mishnah? It's all through question and answer format. The Gemara is not an easy read. It's not like a lateral read. Detail number 1, detail number 2, detail number 3. There's nothing like it. Everything is challenges, question, counter questions, counter attacks, disproving things, etc. Through this style is how the Talmud, is how the Gemara tries to uncover the treasures that are there within the Mishnah. And it's only through asking lots and lots of questions. What type of questions does the Talmud ask? Here's the type of questions the Talmud is going to ask. The Gemara's treatment to the Mishnah looks like this. Number 1, it's going to check, are there any contradictions in this Mishnah? Either within the Mishnah itself, which is something that's interesting. Sometimes the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah, actually, when you think about it, don't fit in together. Or there could be another Mishnah somewhere else, which is contradicting. Or maybe there's another teaching from our sages that seems to contradict what's being said over here. That's one way of asking questions. The Talmud, the Gemara, is also going to look for nuances in the terminology. Why is the Mishnah speaking this way and not that way? The Gemara is going to want to understand the necessity of every single detail. If something seems too obvious, the Gemara doesn't like that. Why is the Mishnah telling us something which is so obvious? Maybe we're not truly understanding the Mishnah. You see the logic over here? The Gemara is also going to clarify the scope of the law. The Mishnah says a law very briefly, but let's really try to understand the law. Okay? And finally, the Gemara is always going to try to look for the reasons for the laws and for different opinions in the Mishnah. So, let us try, for a few minutes together, to try to get a taste of what it means to think in the Gemara way. Let's read the Mishnah. We're only doing one Mishnah in this course, if you've realized by now. The goal is, by the time the course ends, this Mishnah should be coming out of your ears. All right? Let's read the Mishnah. I'm going to read it because I want to take it nice and slow and take a good look at this Mishnah. And I want you to try to think with the head of the Gemara. What are going to be the questions you're going to ask if you were a sage of the Gemara and you had to ask these questions here? Let's read. Text number 1 on page 78 in your books. 78. You see it? All right, here we go. One must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover, from close to the time for reciting the Mincha prayers until after darkness has fallen. Okay. Even the most destitute person in the Jewish nation should not eat unless he is reclining. He should not be provided with less than 4 cups of wine, even if he is being supplied by the public food bank. When they pour him his first cup of wine, according to Beit Shammai, he should first recite the blessing over the festival, and then the blessing over the wine. According to Beit Hillel, he should first recite the blessing over the wine, and then the blessing over the festival. That's the Mishnah. You were here last week, Alan, right? You remember this Mishnah? All right, a little bit. Take it in.
So the Mishnah already has Hillel.
Yeah, that's in the Mishnah. That's right. That was original record. We right away kept record of that argument. Here's my question for you. Let's start asking some questions. Let's ask some good questions here. Let's pound this Mishnah. Go for it.
There's some contradictions.
Oh, there are contradictions?
There are contradictions.
Let's hear. What's the contradictions?
You've got Beit Shammai, the order of the blessings.
Oh, so that's not a contradiction. We have it 2 opinions.
Oh, okay.
That's not a contradiction. A contradiction would be if the Mishnah says recline and then it said don't recline. No, but over here we have 2 opinions. But even there, let's ask some questions. Come on, let's go.
What does it mean by the close to the time for reciting the Mincha prayers?
Oh, that's a nuance. There you go. Look at the first paragraph. When do you stop eating? From close to the time for reciting the Mincha prayers. It doesn't say from Mincha prayers. Close to the time. Hey, what's with the close? Very, very good.
Close after.
And is it close before, close after, approximately? What's up with that? Okay, very, very, very good question. What else?
What's a cup of wine?
That's a great question.
What's a cup?
What's a cup?
what counts as one?
Very, very good. 2 questions. What is a cup? Does a cup need to be this big? 4 of these cups? What about little shot glasses? Is 1 ounce good enough? 2 ounces good enough? Does it need to be a full cup of wine? Half full? And then also, what's wine?
Use the word ounce.
Or something. Got to give me some measurement. Or what's wine? Is grape juice wine? Very good. There you go. We got to. Meaning that's trying to figure out the scope of the law. What? Okay. What else?
What's with the reclining?
Why recline? Is that
What's
the?
with reclining? I mean, like, we know about drinking wine. Like,
You got to recline.
you know, we deal with it. Wine we know, but do we ever why on this night do we recline?
But why are we reclining? I remember that question from somewhere. That's a great question. How far do you recline? You know what they say? If the Seder goes too long, then Zadie reclines into the soup. That's another form of reclining. I've been there, done that. So that's another way of reclining. So what does reclining look like? Like, how deep down do you got to go? You know, how horizontal are we going over here?
And which way do you recline?
Which way do you recline? Okay, see, we can ask another 20 questions here. And this is even without being great scholars and understanding what it says everywhere else. Just you read this one Mishnah. I'm cheating over here. There's really 2 Mishnahs put together. But you just read these 2 Mishnahs over here. You see right away there's a lot that we need to unpack over here. And that is exactly what the Gemara does. Okay. So, dear friends, let us get a real taste of that. And I want to learn with you tonight a full block of such a discussion of the Talmud. And what that is called is a sugya. Anybody ever heard of this word before? Sugya? I want to show it to you in your book, yeah? Turn to page 89. Turn to page 89. What was that?
That's you guys.
The Sugarmans. Really? Sugyas? That's part of it? No. Close enough. Okay. What's a sugya? Look at page 89. A sugya literally means a path or a walk. If you're going to go on a journey, you're going to go on a hike. That's funny, I just visited Arizona. Not for pleasure, for business. But as I was in Phoenix. Beautiful, beautiful mountains just popping out, and every single one has great paths. The state takes amazing good care. I wish they had that over here to go on these wonderful walks. Okay, go on a journey, go on a walk, go on a hike. That's what sugya means. And a sugya is a Talmudic discussion. Now, a sugya can be short; it can be 5-6 lines. That's really short. The sugya we're going to be learning today is going to be about 20 lines, a little bit over 20 lines. Does that sound like a long sugya? It's on page 104. Take a look at it. Does this look formidable? We just took a look at it. We're going to be doing the graded box. You see this? From where it says Gemara up until the next page, 4.5 lines in, that's going to be the sugya we're going to be learning tonight. That's our goal. We want to study this line by line and make sure we understand it. This is, by the way, a short sugya. Some sugyas go on for pages. And which means there's a very, very deep and a very complex journey with turns, twists and turns, going up, going down. It's a real hike. We want to learn a sugya. Now, I want to give you a very, very important understanding of what is a sugya, what's the style of the Talmud, and what's not. A sugya, and learning the Talmud, is never asking what is the law. Most people, by the way, I'll just tell you from experience and from what anecdotal evidence, what people shared with me. Most people, unless they are used to studying Talmud from when they are a little child or a young teenager, most people try studying Talmud for the first time in their adult life. Eventually, sooner than later, shut the book. I know, not you, David. All right, good for you. Most people say, I can't do it. Why? Because the Talmud is built not as a direct conversation. It doesn't say, what is the law? Here's the law. The Talmud is never going to tell you what the law is. And the Talmud, the Gemara, is not formed as a book of law. You can study Talmud for weeks, and you still won't know what the law is. Rather, the sugya and the way the Gemara is built is, we simply want to understand every line and every single point of the Mishnah to its full depth. Now, is it going to be relevant? Is it going to be practical? What are we going to get out of it? We'll see that later. Maybe yeah, maybe not. But the sugya is something which you really have to approach for the sugya itself. It's like going on a hike. What happens if at the end of a hike you end up right where you started? Are you upset?
You're not lost.
At least you're not lost. That's a good part.
That could have been the purpose.
Or the hike itself was the purpose. So most people, they study Talmud, and it's just starting to get into these nitty-gritty arguments and debates and trying to split hairs. Like, just come on, I got enough of this already. I have better things to do with my life. Which you just have to realize this basic idea. What's that?
With a short answer, if you wanted to know the law, would you go to?
You go to Maimonides, or you go to the Shulchan Aruch. There you go. The law, and we'll see that in lesson 6, how from the Talmud, there's later books that give you the clear-cut law.
Thank you.
But the way Talmud is formulated is never as a law. It's simply trying to peer open the Mishnah. Where we get to, we never know when we start. Okay, so which means the attitude when you approach a sugya is not, is this inspiring me? Is this insightful? Is it helping me in my life? Am I getting more information over here? Am I smarter? No. You have to be focused on one question. What is a Gemara trying to answer here? And focus on that. Don't figure out where this is trying to take you and if you're enjoying yourself. You understand? Okay, so a sugya, number one, you have to realize this is what a sugya is. It's not even trying to tell you what the final law is. Sometimes not even clear what the final law is. It's the process itself. It's a process. It's a behind-the-scenes look of the intellectual process that gets us there. We're going to be doing a sugya tonight, but in order to be able to understand the sugya that we're going to learn, or really any sugya in Gemara, there's going to be 3 tools that you need. 3 tools. And I want to go through these 3 tools with you before we get into the sugya. The 3 tools which will prepare us to dive into the sugya is this. Number 1, the power of the Baraita. Anybody ever heard of a Baraita before? No.
Previous discussions.
We'll see. All right. So we need to understand what a Baraita is. Number 2, the precision of the diuk. All right, we're getting a lot of terms down tonight. Baraita, diuk, and number 3, the attitude that you will need. These are 3 things. Let's get going. You ready? Let's begin with the first one, the concept of a Baraita. Baraita is extremely important. The word Baraita comes from the word bira, which literally means outside. So Baraita are collections of teachings that are outside. What does that mean? Which means like this. Last week we spoke a lot about how the Mishnah was collected and slowly but surely after many, many years edited and refined down to the text that it is today. The Mishnah, though, is written in a way that it has to be unbelievably tight and terse, not an extra word. The whole idea of the Mishnah is keep it as brief as you possibly can. Less is more. And the idea was we don't want it to be a whole set like we saw in that airplane footage. You don't want it to be a whole big set. The whole point of the Mishnah was short, easy to copy, easy to remember, and only the necessities are there. Because of that, the Mishnah had a lot of outtakes. What they say, what's left on the cutting room floor, right? Which means there were maybe other ways of how this law has been taught in different Jewish communities. There may be other versions. There may be longer versions. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, when he put together the Mishnah, only put in the Mishnah the most concise and the most necessary pieces of information. Everything else was left out. Anything, any teaching from previous generations of the Jewish people, meaning pre-Talmudic discussions, which did not make the cut into the Mishnah, is called a Baraita. Now, right away when the Mishnah was published, Jews right away also collected and kept record of the Baraitos, which means, let's say there were 15 different major Jewish communities in Israel. Every single Jewish community had a major study hall. Every single major study hall would teach Torah. And there was even like a style and a version. How was this law taught in this study hall? The Mishnah only chose one version. All the other versions weren't put into the Mishnah. All those other either alternative versions or longer versions or different versions, all that is called a Braita. If it didn't make it into the Mishnah, it's outside. Now, the Braita, or plural Braitot, are an extremely powerful tool and the most important tool that the Gemara uses to analyze and dissect down a Mishnah. Because the Mishnah is always so tight. It gives you no meat on the bones. And it's always very elusive. What's it saying over here? You can always tell there's more here than what meets the eye. The Braita, whenever you could find a Braita that's on topic, it always sheds light. It's always going to give you more, just more words, some more details that you don't have in the original Mishnah. So what's a Braita? Don't worry, I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to demonstrate this to you right now, how important and how much more the Braita gives you. So the Braita, plural by the way, is Braitot. So a Braita are teachings from the Tanoim, meaning from the sages of the Mishnah, not included in the Mishnah, that give us additional context. And the way that the Talmud is going to ask questions and clarify things is always going to be by bringing in relevant Braitot. But a Braita does not carry the same weight as a Mishnah, but it still carries a lot of weight. At the end of the day, it's an authentic record of what was Jewish law as it was recorded 300 years ago, 400 years ago. That's critical. Okay, so let me boil down to some of the key ideas over here. Number one, it's even a nuance in the way that it's in the Talmud. If you read it in the Hebrew especially, if you don't read it in the Hebrew, it's easier to miss it. But even in the Hebrew, it's easy to miss it. Whenever a Mishnah is being quoted in the Talmud, it says Tanan, which means we taught. Like, we all know this stuff. The Mishnah, everybody knows the Mishnah. But a Braita is always going to be said with it was taught, which is a little bit more distant. Not everybody knows a Braita. Sometimes the Talmud, it could be the twist in a Talmudic sugya. That there's a Braita here that nobody even knew about, but some guy found the manuscript. Look, I have a copy that this was the way this law was taught in previous generations. Okay, the Mishnah is always going to be very well known. Mishnah is Mishnah, and it's always very tight and brief language. The Braita, on the other hand, is less commonly known, which means sometimes you will see that there's going to be a discussion, and some of the sages don't even know about this Braita. That happens. It's the outtakes. It includes so much more than what the Mishnah has. It will many times give us the biblical derivation. Where does this law come from in the Torah? The Mishnah is not giving you the sources for this law. It just tells you the law. The Braita could give you other opinions that are not in the Mishnah. It gives you the reasons that are not in the Mishnah. And it gives you more context to these laws. You want to check out a Braita? Should we actually taste the Braita? Okay, before we do that, let's read. Let's read over here. Let's read text 2. Max, you want to give us a read? Text 2 on page 82. This is from the great Rabbi Shmuel Gaon. By the way, Rabbi Shmuel Gaon, this is a text from the 900s. So he lived not too long after the closing of the Talmud, a few hundred years later, but still in recent memory. And most importantly, he lived in the same land as the Talmud, Babylonia. And Rabbi Shmuel Gaon wrote a letter that we still have on record today, very long letter, where he records the whole history of the Talmud, and without him, we couldn't do this course. It's one of the most important historical texts of Judaism. So he helps understand what a Braita is. Let's read text 2, Max.
Right to usage. The Amoraim, who came after Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, had much need for these Baraitot. The Baraitot helped them extract many profound ideas that were recorded in the Mishnah in extremely succinct language, captured in hints and broad statements. Using these Baraitot, the Amoraim were able to extrapolate, develop fresh insight, and extract secondary derivations from the Mishnah's laws.
Okay, so you see this? The Braitot were very important for the process of developing the Mishnah. Okay. Should we check it out? Let's check out a Braita. The first thing we're going to do is let's learn a Braita on our Mishnah. Take a look at page 84. Let's read the Mishnah again. No, we'll only do the last paragraph. Page 84, we're going to do text 1 all over again. The Mishnah. Let's focus on the last paragraph. When they pour him his first cup of wine, according to Beit Shammai, he should first recite the blessing over the festival, and then the blessing over the wine. According to Beit Hillel, he should first recite the blessing over the wine, and then the blessing over the festival. We got here an argument. What's the argument about? Okay, this is a very interesting idea. Whenever you're going to be making Kiddush, you've got 2 different blessings you have to make. Number 1, you drink a cup of wine. Just like any food you eat, there's a blessing. Over wine, it's called Borei Pri Hagafen. You thank God for wine. Okay. Then you got another thing you got to do over here. It's a holiday. You have to make a blessing over the holiday. You're making Kiddush, which means we sanctify the day. We thank Hashem for giving us this day. We thank Hashem for sanctifying us by giving us this mitzvah. And that's what we do. When you're going to drink the first cup of wine at the Seder, there's more than one blessing. The obvious question is, which blessing is coming first? The blessing for the wine or the blessing for the holiday? They could say, I don't know, do whatever you do. Just make the blessings. You got to fight over which one comes first. But no, we got to know which one comes first. This is important. They say that there's once a mayor of a Jewish town. He wasn't Jewish. He calls up the local Chabad rabbi, and he says, I want to understand my Jewish constituents better. How would you suggest I do that? So the rabbi said, if you really want to understand the Jewish community, join us for a Shabbos. Really experience Shabbat in your town. He said, but I want you to do it, go all out. Keep Shabbos all the way through. Come here on Friday afternoon before sundown, and you'll be with us through the whole Shabbos. You'll get Shabbos. Mayor says, okay, let's check it out. The mayor comes. Friday night, they go to a shul. They come home. They sit down for a beautiful meal, and it starts with a cup of wine. The Kiddush, cup of wine. They got a whole meal. At some point, they bring out the l'chaim, a nice scotch. A little l'chaim goes around. All right, next morning, wake up. What's on the agenda today? Going back to shul in the morning. They go to shul. Davening is over. The rabbi makes Kiddush for the whole congregation. They sit down for a Kiddush. There's a cholent. Some l'chaim gets passed around again. Some good single malt. All right. Then the rabbi comes back home for his little kids and his wife weren't in shul. He makes Kiddush again. A few hours later, Shabbos is over. What now? We're going to do Havdalah, another cup of wine. Anyways, Shabbos is over, so the rabbi asked the mayor, how was? And the mayor says, it was a wonderful experience. I still didn't figure out why you don't turn on or off the light switch on Shabbos, but I definitely get now why you don't drive. All right, so this is a big deal. We're doing drink cup of wine. Which blessing are you going to make first? Okay, so our Mishnah gives us a debate. Beit Shammai says, first say the blessing for the festival, then the wine. Beis Hillel says, nah, first the wine, then the festival.
Did they explain what each of the viewpoints separately?
What do you mean by that?
They have 2 different viewpoints. Did they explain the reasons separately?
Oh, but does the Mishnah give us a reason? Which means, do we understand why Beit Shammai and why Beis Hillel is saying this and why that one's saying that? We don't know. The Mishnah is saying it. By the way, does the Mishnah even tell us who we follow? No. So what's going on? We don't even have a law over here.
Maxwell House.
What was that?
Maxwell House.
What does it say there?
I don't remember that.
Okay. The wine goes first. Okay. You can actually, we follow ultimately Beis Hillel. But then in the Talmud, they quote this Mishnah and they say, hey, we got a Breita here. Let's read the Breita. Now, and let's actually read the Breita, and then we'll actually see here how valuable the Breita is to help us understand the Mishnah. The Breita is in text number 3. I'll read. Page 86. And again, take it in. We're going to start getting a little bit of a taste of the necessity to really think through the logic of the Talmud. Our rabbis taught, which is the way we're going to introduce a Breita. These are the matters of dispute between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel with regard to the halachot of a meal. Beit Shammai says, when reciting Kiddush over wine, one recites a blessing over the sanctification of the day, and thereafter recites a blessing over the wine. Oh, because, here we got it, because A, the day causes the wine to come before the meal. Furthermore, B, the day has already been sanctified and the wine has not yet arrived. Let's continue. Right, you're all following along over here, right? This makes a lot of sense, right? Don't worry, I'm going to explain this to you in a moment. Okay, Beit Hillel says, one recites the blessing over the wine first, and thereafter recites the blessing over the day. Why? Because A, the wine causes Kiddush to be recited. Alternatively, B, the blessing over wine is recited frequently, and the blessing over the day is not recited frequently. And there is a general principle. When a frequent practice and an infrequent practice coincide, the frequent practice takes precedence over the infrequent practice. The halacha is in accordance with the statement of Beit Hillel. So ultimately we go according to Beit Hillel. Let's go through the reasons. So our mission doesn't give us any reasons, just gives us a cold argument. Let's go through the arguments over here. Beit Shammai. He says, no, wine goes second. Holiday comes first. Kiddush first, then the wine. Why? His first reason is the day causes the wine to come before the meal. What does that mean? The day causes the wine to come before the meal.
Because it's a holiday.
Which means like this. A regular Tuesday night. Are you starting your meal with a cup of wine?
Maybe.
Starting it? No one touch the steak. Stand up, cup of wine, make a toast. No one's doing that. Maybe you'll have a cup of wine in the middle of your meal. Who's guzzling a cup of wine before you even ate anything? Right? So, Beit Shammai says something very simple. We're starting a meal here with this full cup of wine. What made us do this? That's not just a Tuesday night. It's the Seder night tonight. Because the Seder night, that is the cause for the wine. So what comes before what? The holiday comes first, and that causes the wine to be brought. So first make the blessing on the holiday, and then get to the wine. Understand? It's a good argument over here, right? Meaning what's causing what? The day causes the Kiddush.
Classic chicken and egg argument.
That's another way to look at it. No, but the real truth is, why are we doing this, right? What are we doing here? Why are we holding this cup of wine? This is Beit Shammai's argument. It's a good argument, no? Does anybody feel it doesn't hold water? It's a good argument. Okay. His next argument is another very good argument. What came first, chronologically? The start of the holiday or the moment that you're going to be drinking the wine? What kicked in first?
The start of the holiday.
Start of the holiday started first. First the holiday comes, and then you have a meal in the holiday. So, it's a matter of an hour, 40 minutes, 2 hours, but the point is, chronologically, what actually arrived first? What arrived first in time is the holiday. Passover arrived before you're actually going to sit down and make the Seder, if you follow our advice from the Mishnah from 2 weeks ago. You got to wait till it's dark, right? Eat matzah before it's dark, it's like you're doing it in October. Okay. Remember that from the Mishnah? Okay. So, but the way it's meant to be done is that the wine comes after the holiday. So what comes first? The holiday comes first. Make the blessing on the holiday first. Day arrives before Kiddush, so first make the blessing for the day. These are great arguments, no? What does Hillel have against these arguments? Comes along Hillel and says, 1 second. What does he say inside? The wine causes the Kiddush to be recited. The exact opposite of Beit Shammai. Which means it's very, very interesting. And this is where you're saying the chicken and the egg argument. On the one hand, yes, you know why we're making Kiddush right now? Because it's the holiday. But let's think about it. Let's say the holiday is here and you don't have wine. Could you make Kiddush? No. In other words, first bring the wine. Once we have the wine, now we can make Kiddush. So which one comes first? The wine. The wine comes first. Once we have the wine, now we can have a Kiddush. So Basil says, if you look at it from a little bit of a different perspective, actually the wine causes the Kiddush, so first make the blessing on the wine. Now just by the way, this 2 ways of looking at causes is a big idea in philosophy. There's something called final cause versus material cause. Beit Shammai is final cause. Final cause that they caused the Kiddush. Beit Hillel is called material cause. Don't look at the final thing. Materially, we need wine, then we can make Kiddush. Okay, so this is very, okay. Then he gives another argument. Beit Shammai gave 2 arguments. Beit Hillel doesn't want to be outgunned over here, right? He also comes with two arguments. His second argument is very, very interesting. Frequency precedes infrequency in Judaism. There's a general rule in Jewish practice. Something which comes more frequently always gets first priority. We do it first. Less frequent comes second, which is interesting. It's counterintuitive, no? Usually the way we work is, if there's something fresh, let's do the fresh thing first. The regular, I'm bored of that. Well, you do that second. So when you go to an amusement park and they open up a new roller coaster, are you going to say, we'll get to that last? Or do you say, no, brand new, that's exciting, we got to go check it out. Okay. But in halacha, frequency always comes first. I'll give you an example for this. Ready for an example for this? From daily Jewish life. Every single Jewish male has a mitzvah to put on every single day, talis and tefillin. Which one do you put on first? Talis goes first. Why talis? It's interesting, no? Maybe tefillin goes first.
You put it on the Shabbat also.
Just think about it. The talis you wear every single day. The tefillin you don't wear every single day. Tefillin you do 6 days a week, but on Shabbos you're not wearing it. On a holiday you're not wearing it. So it's very, very interesting. Frequency comes first. So Beis Hillel says, what are you doing more often? Drinking a cup of wine or making a kiddush for the Seder? Of course wine happens more often. So make the blessing for the wine first. The Braita is giving us a wonderful window into the thinking of these 2 academies, into these 2 opinions, and now we could appreciate them so much better, no? Now Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel doesn't sound like a petty argument. This is, wow, these are well thought out ideas. Also makes it harder to take a side, no? They really both are coming with good arguments. It also shows you debates in the Talmud are not cheap. Like, I think this, I think that. These are built, number one, on logic, and number one, on a lot of precedents. How does Judaism work? How does Judaism operate? How does Judaism think about these issues? Ultimately, the Baraita here tells us that we have to make a ruling, and the ruling is according to Beis Hillel, which is what we do. When you look in the Haggadah, universally, we're going to make the Kiddush we're going to make the Hagafen, the blessing on the wine, before the Kiddush. This is an example of a wonderful Braita. If we didn't have this Braita, we would be missing so much of understanding of the Mishnah. We would have a debate, but it would feel very cheap. I don't know why they're debating. I don't know where they're coming from. But the Braita gives us, just look at this. In the Mishnah, it's 3 lines. And the Braita, look at this. You have a whole page of text over here to read. That's wonderful. This is an example of the importance of the Braita and how the Braita is such a critical tool to understanding it. Okay, Braitas are very, very important in our sugya that we're about to study soon. Okay, can't run out of too much time over here. This is all the introduction. We didn't really get to the heavy lifting yet. But so far we're doing okay? Louis, we're doing okay so far? So far it's good, okay. This is number 1, the importance of the Baraita. Let me now give you tool number 2. Tool number 2 is called the diuk. What does a diuk mean? Look on page 90. You'll see the diuk in your book. Diuk, not diuk. The U is a U. Diuk. See that? It means precision, which means a precise examination of textual nuance. In the Gemara, we are hyper detail-oriented on what the Mishnah says. And we are going to be crazy about the smallest nuance of a word that was used, not used, could have been used, should have been used, the exact sentence, the structure of a sentence. The level of precision is something which I don't think exists outside of the world of the Mishnah. Maybe in law a little bit, you could nitpick like that. But this is unbelievable level of taking a precision of the Mishnah unbelievably seriously. And this is a Jewish thing. We play around with these types. Okay. They say a story that there was a Russian immigrant, shows up at the Lower East Side, gets a loan from Hebrew Free Loan, open up a business. He's going to open up a fish shop. He knows about fish. He'll open up a fish store. So he goes to the printer and he makes a sign. And it says, fresh fish sold here daily. And he goes to his shul and says, guys, help me out of here. How do you like my sign? So all of his friends look at fresh fish sold here daily. Fresh fish sold here daily? What's the daily doing there? What? People are going to think you're selling it tomorrow. Of course you were selling it today. So you got to say, what is the daily? Of course.
And what's the fresh for?
We'll get there. 1 second. What daily? What daily? Get rid of it. He says, oh, that's a good point. He goes back to the printer. Let's make a new sign. Fresh fish sold here. Goes back to his friends in shul. How do you like my sign now? They say, fresh fish sold here. What, here? What do you mean here?
Of course it's
Of course, they were a block over. Of course, they're there. Their stores. You got it right. Fresh fish sold here. Fresh fish. He said, you're right. You're right. He goes back to the printer. Fresh fish sold. Comes back to his guys. Fresh fish sold. Sold. What? People are going to think you're giving it away for free? Of course, not giving it away for free. Of course, you're selling it. Got it right. Sold. Fresh fish. So you're right. He goes back to the printer. Fresh fish. So, the fresh fish. Fresh? Why? What's the issue with fresh? What? You're selling rotten fish? Oh, of course it's fresh fish. Yeah, right, fresh fish. You're selling fish. Of course it's fresh. He says, you're right. Okay. Only fish. And his wife sees the sign and says, the whole block stinks like fish. We got also right fish? We don't even need a right fish. No sign. Okay. Just a joke. But in Gemara thinking, we take a single word and we'll run to town with it. And it's one of the things that I think it's hard. It's one of the hard things to get used to when you learn Gemara. We care and we will be obsessive over a tiny deal. We'll spend 2 pages trying to figure out what is going on here. What's with this word here? Why is this word here? Let's read text number 4. And David, you could give us a read. Text 4, page 91.
Every word of the Mishnah was precisely weighed and measured. Hence, even the most far-reaching conclusions may be drawn not only from the wording of the Mishnah, but also from the way it uses language, from the expressions that the Mishnah could have used, but did not use, and from the order in which things are mentioned. All these elements comprise the basis for the characteristic Talmudic study called diuk, precision.
That's it. And by the way, this is one of the things when you study Talmud, it's counterintuitive, but we really have to buy in. When you study Talmud, there's a lot of buy-in. You see the Talmud getting hung up on a word, guys, just move on with life. We got bigger fish to fry. Okay, no pun intended. Right? Fresh fish. Is it fresh fish we're frying? Okay. You just come, why are you making an issue about this? No, but this is we care about this. Why did the Mishnah say this and not that? This is an issue. And you really have to kind of get into that, and there's real value. We care, there's value in spending an hour, 2 hours, 2 pages, trying to figure out why is this word here, what's this diuk, and what is it telling us. And this is very important. So the diuk is key. Diuk means absolute precision, which means the author made a deliberate and meaningful choice in the wording, and the Gemara's job is to figure out what that's doing there. This is tool number 2. Tool number 1 is the Braita. Tool number 2 is the diuk. You ready for the third one? The third one is attitude. The attitude. There's a saying, commit to the bit. Which I think is about comedy, right? You could study Talmud. In general, when people go to study, when people sign up for a class, they're always going to ask themselves a question. What's the question? You see a new course is coming up.
Are there snacks?
Oh, are there snacks? There are some snacks. Although we got a complaint this morning that we're waiting for Mushki's baked goods. Stop giving us salads. Maybe that's why we're a little bit low on. Okay. You see a new course is coming up, and what are you going to ask yourself?
Does it work on my schedule?
Oh, work! Wow, you're so committed. I didn't know that, Jim. Not bad. Usually the first question is, do I like this topic? Do I think it's going to be interesting? Do I think it's going to be a good use of my time? Is it going to inspire me? Is it informative? I want to know about the Talmud. Or is it I don't care about the Talmud. I'm not showing up to that class. Right? You can't do that when you're studying Talmud. It's going to be a resounding failure, and you're going to be very disappointed. You're going to say, I want to be inspired, I want to get smart, I want to know Jewish law, I want to know this, It's not going to work. Why? Because Talmud is not built around inspiring you, even informing you, making you very smart, giving you a lot of knowledge. You could spend hours on the most impractical case until it's coming out of your ears and the Talmud's still not over. And it's just twisting your brain this way and that way. Like, please, just like let's move on. Give me some big theological question. Talk to me about abortion rights. Give me something good over here. No, that doesn't happen in the Talmud. The only way Talmud study works is if you're committed to what's happening here. And if the Talmud says we're going to deal with this issue, I'm committed. Let's deal with this issue. Why do you care about this issue? I don't care why I care. I'm here to learn this. Is it going to be teaching me something? I don't even know yet. I don't care about that right now. When I'm done learning, I'll say, by the way, what could I take out of this? Maybe it's inspiring, maybe it's not inspiring. But it's not going to work if you simply say, I want to study Talmud. The reason why you study Talmud is not because you're going to get something out of it. You could when I was in yeshiva, you know how much you could study Talmud and be like, so what'd you get out of this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know why we're talking about this. You don't feel like a great scholar after 3 weeks of studying Talmud. Maybe you do, but sometimes very often not. You could spend just weeks on one page on just... Learning isn't just about what we can get out of it. Stop looking for what you're going to get out of it. And instead, studying Talmud is about discovering and exploring God's wisdom and will. This is God's Torah He gave to us. I'm studying because I want to know what God shared with us. I have the privilege, I have the beautiful merit, the opportunity to study God's wisdom. What do I care if I find it inspiring or insightful or empowering or good use of my time or not? I'll spend 3 hours on it. Done. Not because of what's going to happen. You need this attitude. I am going to study the sugya for the sake of the sugya, and I don't care if I like it or don't like it or find it interesting or stimulating or not. It's like going to an amusement park. Go to an amusement park. Can you imagine somebody goes to an amusement park and the whole day he's tripping over himself? Am I having fun? He's on the roller coaster. Am I having fun? Right? Could you have fun doing that? I don't know. I'm on the roller coaster. Am I having fun? I don't know. Do I like this one? Just sit down, be in the moment, and have fun. Tonight when you get home, you'll ask yourself, did I have fun? But you can't have fun if you're busy trying to figure out, am I having fun? The way to study Talmud is you got to really let go of the whole world. The whole world is gone. The whole world is sleeping. The only thing that exists is me and my Talmud. Let's learn. It's the only way successful Talmud study happens is with an attitude of, I'm committed to the bit, we're going for this. If you have these 3 tools, number 1, you understand the role and the power of the Breita. Number 2, you understand the importance and the style of looking at the diuk, the precision of the diuk. And if you have the right attitude, then you are ready to dive into a sugya. Dear friends, should we do it? Dive into the sugya?
Bring it.
Bring it on! Buckle up. Dear friends, we are going to right now do a sugya. I want to warn you, it is easy to get lost. Okay? It's easy. So number 1, hold me off if I'm going too fast. We could be here till 11:30, till 12:30. It's okay. It's going to take about 3 hours to get through the sugya right now, so please commit to the bit. You can text your boss now that you'll be a little bit late tomorrow morning. No, okay. We're going to do this in a half hour, 35 minutes. But we got to really, really get ourselves committed, and it demands a lot of brain power. This is not cheap logic. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. You count 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's 4. We have to really, really think creatively, think nuanced, be ready to question assumptions, and we are right now going to do this. You ready? Let's do this. Let's look at our Mishnah. Let's look at the opening line of our Mishnah. Page 89. Take a look at page 89. Let's look at our Mishnah, and we'll slowly try to start unpacking the sugya of the Talmud, and we're not skipping at anything. We're going to be going word for word, the whole 22 lines of the sugya that I showed you, which we have the picture of in the back over here. Here's the Mishnah. It's here on the screen, and let's read the opening line, the opening paragraph of the Mishnah on page 89. One must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover, from close to the time for reciting the mincha prayers until after darkness has fallen. Let's focus on this line. What's the Mishnah telling you? Comes Friday afternoon. Sorry, comes Seder Eve, Erev Pesach, and tells you a simple law. Don't eat before the Seder. By the way, why not? Want to give a good guess?
You have to get the chametz out of your system.
No, that's not why. That's interesting, but that's not why. Once in your system, it doesn't count.
Got a brisket coming.
Can you imagine? It's like your one time a year, annually, you only do this once a year, you're going out to your in-laws for dinner. And imagine you being that type of husband.
I'm not hungry.
Like an hour before is like, yeah, I'm just starving. I'm whipping up dinner. You want dinner? Like, dude, we're going to the in-laws. Like, you're gonna show up and be like, no, we're not hungry. We just ate. We're just home. We started. Like, don't worry. Does that work? No. Someone's sleeping on the couch for the next month right now, right? That's no way to act. You're gonna have a dinner. It's a special dinner. You don't eat before dinner. Okay. So you're gonna have a big dinner. It's a Seder night. Just do yourself a favor. Just don't eat for a few hours. Okay. It's a logical law, right? Okay. But it's important. Okay. But the Mishnah tells the time. When do you gotta stop eating? The time for mincha prayers. What's the time for mincha prayers? Okay, so let me give you a little bit about Jewish time. Ready about Jewish time? Jewish time is there's 12 hours in the day. 12 hours are night, 12 hours a day. But Jewish time works that the hours are not like just arbitrary hours, which is what we have. We have 60 minutes is an hour, right? Jewish time works like this. Take all the minutes of daylight from sunrise to sunset, divide that by 12. That's not going to be 60. There's one day a year where it's exactly 60 minutes. Usually in the winter, an hour is actually less. It could be 48 minutes. Today, I looked up, today an hour, according to Jewish time, is 56 minutes and some seconds. Which means the days are slowly getting longer. We still didn't hit, in the summer, it could be close to 90 minutes an hour. I don't know if it gets to 90, but it's 80 something minutes an hour, if I'm not mistaken. The mincha time kicks in 9.5 hours after sunrise. So let's say 6 a.m. Let's just use like very rounded out numbers. If 6 a.m. starts the day, what's 9.5 hours? 3:30. Okay. So mincha time begins 3:30. So 9.5 hours into the day is mincha time, and let's just use the model of 3:30, but it's always going to be 9.5 hours, not from 6 a.m., but 9.5 hours following halachic hours. You have 3:30, and from that time, you stop eating. I want you to remember these numbers. Mincha time is 9.5 hours, and we're going to be calling that 3:30, just to give a round out number. You following? Hold that data in your brain. Okay. Comes the Talmud, and the sugya begins with this. A diuk. You ready for a diuk? Let's do some precision. The Mishnah says, one must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover. On the eve of Passover. Why did the Mishnah say, stop eating on the eve of Passover? Why eve of Passover? What should have it said? Think about it. Is the Seder the only special meal we have in the year? No. Every holiday has a special meal. Every Shabbos, Friday night's a special meal. So what's the Mishnah coming and saying and qualifying this whole law by saying eve of Passover? What do you mean eve of Passover? This is an issue that we are constantly dealing with. We've got special meals. Right, in America, you have Thanksgiving meals. Like one time a year, people are making meals. We're doing this rodeo pretty often. So why is it Mishnah saying only on the eve of Passover? You know why? That's the power of the diuk. It's telling you something. What's it telling you? Want to give a guess?
This is a special.
Oh, this law is special for the eve of Passover. Meaning the Mishnah is saying, this is only about the eve of Passover. You know when you're not allowed to eat? On the eve of the meal? If it's Passover meal. But that doesn't mean other holidays and festivals. other festivals in Shabbos, other holidays in Shabbos. This diuk, one must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover. Now, you could say, come on, don't be silly. The tractate is the tractate of Passover. So it's saying laws in the context of Passover. Or maybe the rabbi who said this rule was thinking about Passover, so he just said Passover. But we're like, no, diuk is diuk. You said that means something. That's not just there for no reason. On the eve of Passover means that it's only a law that applies on Passover, not a law on Shabbos and other festivals.
And does it apply on every night of Passover?
2 nights, yeah, presumably. Okay, let's unpack this. So we have Passover and all other meals, and the Talmud is going with this diuk, that the Mishnah is telling you that the only time you have a prohibition is the Seder night. Every other Friday night and every other festival night, oh, go ahead, knock yourself out. Have as much food as you want before the meal. We're not going to tell you can't eat.
Still may wind up on the couch.
You're saying, hey, right, okay, but this is how it goes. Okay. I'm trying to figure out why my ringer is still on, but okay. So far, so good? This is the understanding of the Mishnah. You know what the issue is? We've got a Breita. And this Breita is going to start making some trouble here. Let's read the Breita, and then I want to unpack it with you. You ready? You guys got to pay attention. If you miss any link over here, boom, the whole sugya, you're not gonna know what's flying over here. Okay, text number 5. Text 5, page 92. The Gemara is bothered that it says on the eve of Passover and that it singles out Passover. It doesn't make sense. Why not? Let's read. Why does it specify the eve of Passover? Even the eve of Shabbos and other festivals also trigger this prohibition. For we learned in the Breita. What does the Breita say? The Breita says, one should not eat on the eves of Shabbat or festivals from the time of Mincha and onward, so that one enters Shabbat or the festivals with an appetite. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But conversely, Rabbi Yossi says that one may continue eating until it grows dark. Here we have a Breita. Let's really process what's happening here in the Breita. The Breita, first of all, is it talking only about Passover? No. It's a very across-the-board, broad-stroke Breita. Shabbat and all festivals. And we have 2 opinions. We have the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you're never allowed to eat. Rabbi Yossi says you're always allowed to eat. So let's put up this Breita here on the board. We have a Breita. The Breita says, may one eat on the eve of Shabbat and festivals from the time of Mincha. We have Rabbi Yehuda, check him out with the tanned hat. Rabbi Yehuda is the absolute no team. Like, no, you're never eating on the eve of a Jewish meal. All right? Never. Rabbi Yossi says, you're always allowed to eat with the blue hat. All right? The right is always no, left is yes. Now here's the question. Who is the sage of the Mishnah? You follow my question?
Who's the what?
Who's the sage? Which rabbi is the teacher of our Mishnah?
Yes,
Does it fit with Rabbi Yossi?
yeah.
Think about this. I want you to think about this. Could Rabbi Yossi fit in the Mishnah?
If he makes an exception to it.
But he didn't say. Rabbi Yossi says you're always allowed to eat. But what does the Mishnah say? Almost always, not Passover. That doesn't fit with Rabbi Yossi.
Well, it's sort of,
1 second. Could it fit with Rabbi Yehuda?
no.
Which means, again, I understand we could be creative over here. But if you look at the text, Rabbi Yehuda's always no. Our Mishnah seems pretty clearly implies that usually you are allowed to eat.
Right.
So basically, the Talmud right away says, we have an identity crisis over here. Meaning, who said this? We need a record of which sage this goes according to. Now, why do we care who said it? It makes a very big difference who said it. The whole meaning of the Mishnah is going to change based on who said it. We have this issue that we don't have anybody who says the difference. I want to do this. Take a look in your books. I want to do this with you. Page 92. Let's fill in this chart. Let's make sure we understand the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. According to Rabbi Yehuda, based on the bright that we just learned, are you allowed to eat a meal on the eve of Passover? According to Rabbi Yehuda?
No.
No. What about the eves of Shabbat and other festivals?
No.
No. He says no across the board. According to Rabbi Yossi, on the eve of Passover, are you allowed to eat a meal before?
We don't have that information.
Did he say not? He didn't say not. He just said all Shabbat and festivals. On the eve of Passover, according to Rabbi Yossi, are you allowed to eat?
Yeah.
He said yes. On the eve of all Shabbat and festivals?
Yes.
Yes. So we have an issue here. The Mishnah is giving us nuance and differences between Passover and everything else. But the Braita, which actually gives us the record of who's saying what, it doesn't fit into any model. So what's the Mishnah telling us? Where does the Mishnah fit in? The Mishnah has to fit in. How's the question? There's a resounding world question. We can't sleep tonight because of this question. Right, Jim? This is a big... See, the only way to learn sugya is the question has to kill you. We have to make sense of this. This is the issue. Who fits with the Mishnah and who is the Mishnah? Whose voice is the Mishnah speaking? Which sage is the sage of the Mishnah? We need to know who said it. Okay. So comes along a sage from the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi are sages from the Mishnah time. Comes along a sage. His name is Rav Huna. Okay, check. I want you to see what's happening on the board over here. Rav Huna arrives. Here's Rav Huna. And Rav Huna is going to say, I'm going to propose a solution that this Mishnah is actually speaking in the voice of Rabbi Yossi. But we had a problem. Rabbi Yossi says you're always allowed to eat. The Mishnah says you're not allowed to eat by Passover. So Rav Huna is going to say no. It's very simple, which is what Max said. The Braita was giving us the generalization. Generally, are you allowed to eat or generally not allowed to eat? Rabbi Yossi was saying, yeah, generally you're always allowed to eat. The Mishnah is coming and giving us Rabbi Yossi's one exception. Oh, it's a one exception to the rule. Meaning Rabbi Yossi says, yeah, you're always allowed to eat. Oh, by all holidays and festivals. By all holidays and Shabbos. Oh, but if it's Passover, that's our little exception. Passover is the exception to the rule. Oh, Passover you're not allowed to eat. So really, this Mishnah is speaking in the voice of Rabbi Yossi, and the Mishnah is saying you're always allowed to eat. Only on the eve of Passover you're not allowed to eat. And it fits with the Braita. The Braita is just giving us generally what the rule is. And the Mishnah is showing us how the rule actually changes in this one specific instance. That's Rav Huna's answer. How do you like Rav Huna's answer?
Logically fits.
If it's not a crazy logical leap. So far doing okay? Should we read that inside? Text number 6. Text 6. This is step number 2 of our sugya. Rav Huna's answer. Rav Huna said, this distinction between Passover and Shabbat or other festivals is necessary for Rabbi Yossi, who said one may continue eating until it grows dark. That will apply to the eve of Shabbos and other festivals. But on the eve of Passover, he will concede that it is prohibited due to the obligation to eat matzah. The translation here is a bit weak. But the point is, this is what Rabbi Yossi is doing over here. The Mishnah and the Braita do fit together. The Braita is giving the generalization. And we go according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. That you're always allowed to eat on a Friday afternoon or Sukkot afternoon. Eat your meal, no problem, even if it's an hour before the meal. And the Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yossi that there's one little exception, Passover.
And Huna says the reason for the exception is because of the Pesach mitzvah.
Oh, because there's a unique mitzvah of matzah. Oh, exactly. We have that too. But the point is, it's logical why Pesach is different. Why is Pesach different? Because the only time where we have we're biblically meant to eat something. Every other holiday, there's a mitzvah to have a meal. But what you should eat doesn't tell you. It Doesn't tell you eat gefilte fish. The Torah doesn't tell you to eat gefilte fish with a carrot on top. Doesn't tell you that. It just tells you eat what you want to eat. Whatever you want. The only time the Torah is actually going to tell you eat this is matzah. And that's the logic why Passover should be more strict. Okay. Now, based on Rav Huna's understanding, let's look at page 93. What are the opinions now of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi? According to Rabbi Huna. Are you allowed to eat? Let's start with Rabbi Yehuda, who says, okay, are you allowed to eat a meal on the eve of Passover according to Rabbi Yehuda? Still no, right? That didn't change according to Rav Huna. Are you allowed to eat a meal on the eve of Shabbat or other festivals?
Still not.
Still no, which means, right? Rav Huna did not touch Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is across the board no. But now, according to Rabbi Yossi, are you allowed to eat on the eve of Passover?
No.
No. What about the eves of Shabbat and other festivals?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, but now, you see, the opinion changed. Rav Huna's understanding is that this is all Rabbi Yossi, the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, and it all fits in with the Breita. No contradictions, and we have an understanding here. Elke, can I bother you to get the door? All right, thank you so much.
Did you say Rabbi Huna is a non-Mishnah sage?
Yeah, he's later. He's the Gemara. The Talmud the Gemara is trying to figure out this mess.
Gemara sage?
Yeah. In other words, whenever it says Rabbi, like rabbi, that means Mishnah. The Rav is a downgrade. Oh, that's Talmud era. That's Gemara era. So Rav Huna is trying to offer an answer to make all this make sense, and what he's saying is no, it could all fit according to Rabbi Yossi. Okay, you ready for the next part? In a different place, different time, there's a great sage. His name is Rav Papa. Rav Papa is a big guy, big guy. Rav Papa is the head of a yeshiva, and I forgot where. We'll talk about him next week. Rav Papa tackles this issue, that how do we fit the Mishnah with the Breita, and he gives an alternative answer. And listening closely, this is a little bit more difficult. He says that actually the whole Mishnah is actually the voice of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you're never allowed to eat. But the Mishnah seems to be saying that the only time you're not allowed to eat is on Passover Eve. Every other time you're allowed to eat. How can we make this fit with Rabbi Yehuda? He says, no, I'll tell you. And Rav Papa shows us a brilliant diuk, another precision in the text. Watch this carefully. The way the Mishnah is written and the way the Breita is written is actually with a tiny little nuance. And watch this closely. The Mishnah says, when do you have to stop eating? From close to the time of Mincha prayers. What does the Breita say? No close. It says, from the time of Mincha. Oh, what's going on over here? You want to know what's going on over here? The Mishnah is actually Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you're never allowed to eat on Shabbat and festivals before the meal. When does that prohibition kick in? From the time of Mincha. Which is when? 9.5 hours after the day starts, which is 3:30. You know what this Mishnah is telling you? Yeah, I know you're never allowed to eat. Rabbi Yehuda is telling you, on Passover, we start not eating a little bit earlier. Close to the time. Don't wait for 9.5 hours into the day. We're going to start a half hour early at 9 hours into the day, at 3 o'clock. And that's now a whole different way how we can understand what the Mishnah is saying and how it fits with the Breita. Rav Papa is saying, no, the Breita and the Mishnah could even be Rabbi Yehuda. So then how could we make the Mishnah fit? Because Rabbi Yehuda is saying you're never allowed to eat. That starts from Mincha. Oh, the Mishnah is coming to tell you Passover is special. You're still not going to eat, but you're going to start a half hour early as well. That's Rav Papa. How does that sound?
It makes every word have meaning.
Makes every word have meaning. And it's brilliant. Two sages are tackling an issue, and they're proposing two very different answers. Now, by the way, the meaning of the Mishnah totally changes based on who is right. Either the Mishnah is telling you on the eve of Passover don't eat, but every other time you could eat, or the Mishnah is telling you you're never allowed to eat, but on the eve of Passover start a little bit earlier. It is very material what the law is. So we have two ways how to resolve this issue. Rav Papa gives one, Rav Huna gives another. Rav Huna says the whole thing goes according to Rabbi Yossi. Rav Papa says all goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Let's read Rav Papa's answer in the text of the Talmud. Text number 7, page 94. You ready? Rav Papa said, we can explain the Mishnah in a way that conforms with Rabbi Yehuda's view. I could even make it fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The distinction between Passover and other occasions is that there, in the case of the eve of Shabbat and other festivals, the prohibition is in force from the time of Mincha and onward. However, in proximity to the time of Mincha, eating is still permitted. It's 15 minutes before Mincha time. It's 15 minutes before 9 hours of the day. Enjoy your burger, knock yourself out. So then the Mishnah is telling you, but conversely, on the eve of Passover, the prohibition comes into force even during the time that is proximate to Mincha, shortly prior to Mincha. And now that's really what the Mishnah is coming to tell us. Okay, let's do the same exact exercise according to Rav Papa's understanding of the conversation. Take a look at page 94. Let's do this again all together. According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rav Papa, are you allowed to eat on the eve of Passover?
No.
From when?
3 o'clock.
From a half hour earlier before Mincha prayer. On the eve of Shabbat and other festivals, are you allowed to eat?
No.
No. From when?
3:30.
From 3:30. You're following here? And that's the nuance that the Mishnah is giving. According to Rav Papa, according to Rabbi Yossi, on the eve of Passover, you're allowed to eat? No. See, you're missing the plot over here. Rav Papa is moving away from this answer. He rejects this whole thing. What does Rabbi Yossi say in the Breita? Does he make any distinctions? He says you could always eat. So according to Rav Papa's answer, on the eve of Passover, according to Rabbi Yossi, you allowed to eat? Passover Eve? Yes. Other Shabbat and holidays? Yes, always. According to Rav Papa, he does not touch Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said you're allowed to eat, that's fine. The Mishnah is not talking about Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is not the position of the Mishnah. The Mishnah is speaking in the voice of Rabbi Yehuda. Do you see over here how these are very alternative reads about what the Mishnah means and what these opinions are? Who's right? Which one do you think is right?
As much as I'm a snacker, I think Rav Papa has the better answer.
Rav Papa is a great answer because he's working with precision. I like that a lot. Rav Huna is a more intuitive, easier answer to get to, but I like how Rav Papa is showing us the change of words over here. Okay. Now, the sugya only gets heavier at this point because we already built up a lot of moving pieces. The more moving pieces we add over here, the more cluttered our brain starts getting over here. But we still don't know an answer because we have two answers. So now we got to try to tease out who's right and who's wrong. Okay, you ready for some drama?
Got another rabbi in you?
Comes along, so Rav Papa has this big, we have to imagine, Rav Papa is the head of the academy, head of the yeshiva. He has hundreds, thousands of people. And he comes up with this brilliant resolution to this question. And somebody pulls out a Breita, which is a little bit less known. He says, I've got a manuscript with a Breita. It's the exact same Breita that we've been talking about. Are you allowed to eat on the eve of a festival on Shabbos? And it quotes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. But it's a little bit of a different version. You know what the issue with this version is? Let's read it. And you got to pay attention here. You ready? Text 8. Text 8. Text 8. On page 95. Page 95, text 8. Rav Papa gave his resolution, and now somebody in the study hall comes and says, no, but I've got a problem here. Your resolution sounds good, but I've got a hole to poke. But is it the case that on the eve of Shabbos, eating is permitted in proximity to the time for Mincha? Are you telling me, Rav Papa, are you telling me that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the prohibition only kicks in at 3:30 sharp, but 3:25, 3:15. You're allowed to eat? Is that what you're telling me? But that doesn't work. I've got a manuscript of another Breita, which is really an alternative version of this very same Breita. And let's read what it says. Surely we learned the contrary in the Breita. Let's read the Breita. The Breita reads exactly like the Breita we quoted before, with one critical difference. A little bit of a different variation. Let's read. You ready? One may not eat on the eve of Shabbat or festivals from the 9th hour and onward, so that they enter Shabbat with an appetite. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rabbi Yossi maintains that one may continue eating until it grows dark. Exact same setup of the Breita. Are you allowed to eat on the eve of Shabbat and festivals? But it doesn't say from the time of Mincha. What does this new Breita tell us?
There's a time,
What's the time?
the 9th hour,
9th hour. What doesn't it say?
near the,
It doesn't use the from close to the time anymore.
No.
It doesn't give a meaning to that.
It doesn't say from the time. When's the time of Mincha? 3:30, 9.5 hours into the day. Rav Papa was trying to read into that Rabbi Yehuda believes the prohibition only begins at 3:30 sharp, Mincha time sharp. And then he could read into the Mishnah that's why Passover is different, because it starts a half hour earlier. But now we've got a Breita that tells us, you know what Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is? Rabbi Yehuda's opinion across the board is that we start 9 hours in. So we got an alternative version Breita. It challenges this theory, because the new Breita shows us clearly we're not starting at 3:30 Rabbi Yehuda's prohibition. We're going to, whoops, what just happened there? All right. It got a little bit messed up. 3:30, the animation got messed up. But look, oh, no, there we go, now it works. Not 3:30, 3 o'clock. 9th hour. If Rabbi Yehuda holds across the board that you're not allowed to start eating already from 3 o'clock, then his whole theory that, look at the words, close to the time is different than from the time, and you start with Passover earlier, no, that doesn't work. And then the Mishnah is not really fitting in with Rav Papa. Sorry, it's not fitting in with Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda's whole answer falls apart. And if Rabbi Yehuda's answer, if Rav Papa's answer falls apart, then whose answer stands? Rav Huna's understanding stands. That the Mishnah is actually speaking in the voice of Rabbi Yossi. So here we got an alternative version, which shows us clearly that Rav Papa's reading of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion and the reading of the Mishnah actually doesn't hold water. It's a plot twist. Are you following? It's
because he's essentially combining two of Rabbi Yehuda's.
Let me show you. So Rav Papa's whole argument is, he's reading this into the text, okay? He's reading, look, when Rabbi Yehuda gives the generalization, he says from the time. He meant exactly from the time, 3:30. And if so, we can make the Mishnah fit in with it. Because the Mishnah is telling us, on Passover special, you start from close to the time. Start a half hour earlier. But his assumption, what Rav Papa's whole logic is built upon the fact that we could read that from the time means start sharp. Yeah. But now that we have a Breita that shows us that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion all along was that you're actually going to start even before, from 9 hours into the day, which is at 3 o'clock, then what's the issue? That means his whole deep reading into the nuances of the text don't actually hold water. He went too deep. Hey, you're trying to, that doesn't work. And if so, Rabbi Yehuda holds the exact same thing by everything. And if so, the Mishnah is not, we can't fit it in with Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, how are we doing?
We do the chart.
Let's do the chart. Where do we stand now in the Talmud? Based on this new second Breita, the alternative version Breita that we just brought in. Let's do the chart. According to Rabbi Yehuda, are you allowed to eat on the eve of Passover? No. From what time?
3.
From 3. What about on the eves of Shabbat and other festivals? No. From when?
The 9th hour.
From 3 p.m., right? Right? Any distinction between Passover and other holidays just went out the window, right? Okay. But now, which opinion stands if Rav Papa's doesn't stand? Now we're back to Rav Huna. How does Rav Huna understand the Mishnah? According to Rabbi Yossi, on the eve of Passover, you're allowed to eat?
No.
Now we're back to no. Now it must be that it's Rabbi Yossi speaking, and therefore it's no. But what about on the other holidays and festival and Shabbat?
Yes.
Then yes. You see, now we're back. Now we rejected Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Papa. We have a new understanding of what Rabbi Yehuda really his opinion is, and we're back to Rav Huna's reading of the Mishnah. But the drama continues. 1 second. Hold your horses before you get so excited about this new Breita, which seems to disprove Rabbi Yehuda's answer. Text number 9, let's take a look. Page 96, text 9. Mar Zutra says, but 1 second. Mar Zutra is there in the study hall. He sees this drama playing out. Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Papa is providing an answer. Somebody's pulling out this manuscript with an alternative reading of the Breita, which seems to totally poke a hole in Rav Papa's answer on Rabbi Yehuda. But Mar Zutra says, 1 second. Who can tell us whether this Breita is accurate? Perhaps it is erroneous. You pulled out a manuscript Breita. A Mishnah we know is very concise, very precise. You pulled an alternative version Breita, which tells us 9 hours, which totally rejects Rav Papa's answer. Maybe that version of the Breita is actually not 100% accurate. That's an easy mistake to make. 9 hours, 9.5 hours. That was easy for the copyist at some point to miss that out. You want to push away Rav Papa and his answer because of this alternative version Breita. I'm sorry. Do we know this is an authentic Breita? Do we have validation? Was this text ever verified? Rav Papa's standing another chance right now. But the Talmud continues. Text 10, page 97. But comes along Maremar, that's a great name, or some claim that it was Rav Yemar, not clear, the Maremar, Rav Yemar, okay. Comes along this guy and he responds, hey, I'll tell you, I visited the public lecture of the great Rav Pinchas, the son of the great Rav Ami. And when I was there a visitor arose and he recited this same alternative version Breita in the presence of Rav Pinchas, and he accepted it. Which means this Breita, which is totally refuting Rav Papa's understanding of Rabbi Yehuda, is authenticated by a witness who came and says, I saw that Rav Pinchas accepted this. And if he accepted it, that's a verified, he has the right to do that. Boom. The accuracy of this alternative Breita is confirmed. If so, does Rav Papa's answer stand? No. And because of this, the Talmud comes and tells us we are going to ultimately have to reject Rav Papa's brilliant, but ultimately we can't accept his answer, and we are going to accept Rav Huna's understanding of the Mishnah, how it fits with the Breita, and that the Mishnah is really speaking the voice of Rabbi Yossi, and the Mishnah is confirming to us that you're always allowed to eat. The only time you're not allowed to eat is Passover. Let's read that inside. Oh, sorry, the last paragraph of text 10, page 97. If so, says the Talmud, we indeed have a difficulty with Rav Papa's suggestion. Rav Huna's answer is therefore more plausible. That's the end of Sugya. We've come to a resolution. We've fought out the different meanings. We tested each one. We tried as much as we can. One fell, the other one, no objections. That is the ultimate understanding of the Mishnah that the Talmud and the Gemara is going to assume and run with. Did I lose any of you?
Follow the logic.
You followed it.
Yeah.
Now, even if you don't 100% get the whole thing, we get it. Right? You see the brilliance of what's happening here. Yes?
In the actual page, is all that laid out?
That's just the middle block. Just the middle. This could get a lot more complicated the moment. Just the shaded. Once you get the Tosfos involved, oh man.
Including the conclusion down to the check mark?
Yeah, all the way down till here.
Okay.
That's it. We just read that piece of Talmud.
Okay.
Now, what you'll see over here is that the style of the Talmud is that everything is a puzzle and things have to match. And we're going to test it. We're always challenging the assumptions. Rabbi Yehuda is going to try to match it up. We're going to try to match up Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, but we have to challenge what we think Rabbi Yehuda is saying. When you first read Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, he says never eat, you take it very simplistically. What the Talmud is doing 1 second. No. Are we sure we understand exactly what his position is? And we're going to do the exact same thing with Rabbi Yossi. You read Rabbi Yossi says, yeah, you're always allowed to eat. No. Let's challenge the assumption of how we originally understood what Rabbi Yossi is saying. The diuk is the key of what's allowing us to break down and say, 1 second, look at things with a lot more nuance. Really what just happened over here is a great way to think about it as a tennis match. We start with the ball in the middle. It says no eating before Mincha and Passover. We first see if we can fit with Rabbi Yossi. Then we say, maybe we can fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Back to Rabbi Yossi. No, maybe we get it to fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Ultimately, the ball stays with Rabbi Yossi, and we settle that the whole Mishnah is speaking in the voice of Rabbi Yossi, and ultimately, halacha follows this. Whose opinion do we follow till today? Are you allowed to eat a meal Friday afternoon? The fact that the ball stays in Rabbi Yossi's court informs halacha till today that Rabbi Yossi is the one that the Mishnah says we follow his opinion. Because we discovered that the Mishnah is actually going according to Rabbi Yossi. Which means that today, Friday on Seder Eve, it's a prohibition, serious prohibition. You're not allowed to have a meal. You're not allowed to wash on bread. You're not allowed to eat a real meal. A little snack is maybe okay, but no meals. What about on Friday afternoon? You're allowed to. Now, Jewish law says better not to. It would be a nice thing not to. But there's no prohibition. This is a taste of the sugya. And it's 9:05, dear friends. This was a short sugya. I wouldn't call it an easy sugya, but this is easy stuff. And dear friends, next week we're gonna do it. It's gonna be a lot easier on all of us next week. Next week is going to be a lot more of the history. Next week is going to be a great, fun class. This was the intense class. We really got a taste of real, authentic study of Talmud and how the logic of Talmud, of the Gemara, trying to dissect the Mishnah, how that works. Next week, how the Talmud was actually created and written. And we're going to go through the whole history of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's for tonight. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for following along with us on the journey of the Sugya. You may now unfasten your seatbelts and have a wonderful evening.